And time went on. I went forward with my life. I worked. I got married, had my son.
It's the confession no one expected, and it's sending shockwaves through Elvis Presley's most loyal fans and even his own family. She has stayed quiet for decades, but now no longer a secret so unsettling, so deeply buried that even Elvis's own family never saw it coming. For decades the world believed they knew how Elvis's story ended, but Ginger's truth changes everything. This reveal is like no other. Groundbreaking is an understatement, and once you hear it, you'll never look at the king the same way again. Who was Ginger Alden really? From the outside she looked like just another young beauty swept into Elvis Presley's larger-than-life orbit. But behind the ornate gates of Graceland, Ginger Alden was something much more. At only 20 years old, she wasn't just Elvis's girlfriend, she was his chosen fiancée, the woman he wanted by his side for what was supposed to be the next chapter of his life. A chapter it now seems few ever truly understood. Their bond wasn't built in the spotlight, it was forged in the quiet spaces between fame and fear. Ginger saw him when the stage lights dimmed, when the crowds disappeared and the pressure of being the king came crashing down. He wasn't performing for her, he was unraveling in front of her. At 3 a.m. he would pace the halls barefoot, deep in thought, often murmuring about feeling trapped, not just by the world, but by the version of himself that the world demanded. He would say things like, "What if I just left it all behind?" Or "What if I could just disappear without anyone realizing?" He wasn't joking, not really. He devoured books on transformation, spirituality, reincarnation. He spoke of legacy like it was a burden, not a blessing. Fame, he told her once, is the most beautiful prison you'll ever see. And then came the whispers, the strange fragmented ideas about starting over, a place no one would find him, a new identity. Ginger admits she didn't know whether he was serious or if he was testing her loyalty. But the look in his eyes told her one thing, he meant it. He even hinted that someone was helping him, someone outside Graceland, someone who understood how these things are done. So was it just late-night talk, or was Elvis Presley, America's most iconic star, quietly planning the most controversial vanishing act in modern history? And if so, how close did he get? The strange behavior no one wanted to talk about. In the final weeks they spent together, Ginger noticed a change in Elvis. Not just in his appearance, though there were moments he looked unusually tired or distracted, but in his overall energy. Something had shifted. He seemed more introspective, more determined, almost as if he were counting down to something. But what? He stopped talking about his usual routines, no mention of recording schedules or upcoming appearances. Instead, his thoughts drifted to ideas of reinvention, of starting over in a place where no one expected him. "Maybe I'll wake up somewhere no one knows me," he once told her quietly. "Somewhere they don't call me the king." There was no sadness in his tone. If anything, there was relief. He began gathering personal items, photographs, letters, old keepsakes, and tucking them away. Ginger noticed him placing certain documents into envelopes, organizing them with care. Some nights he would be on the phone for hours, speaking softly in a room with the door closed. When she asked who he was talking to, he would only smile and say, "Just someone helping me figure things out." At first, Ginger assumed he was planning a break or perhaps another creative project. But as the days passed, the feeling grew stronger. This wasn't a pause, this was preparation. Was Elvis planning a tour or something far more permanent? A letter hidden from the world. Years later, Ginger Alden revealed something she had kept hidden for far too long. Among Elvis's many personal belongings, tucked away where no one else could see, was a letter. Not typed, not prepared for legal matters, just a single handwritten note. It wasn't addressed to his attorney, his manager, his family, or even to her. It was simply written, sealed, and stored in a private drawer that Ginger says only she ever opened. The letter itself wasn't lengthy, but the words carried weight. In it, Elvis didn't make accusations. He didn't name names. Instead, he laid bare his inner unrest. He spoke of people who once meant something to him but had become distant, transactional, people who, as he put it, kept taking pieces of him until there was almost nothing left. He described feeling like he was trapped inside a version of his life he hadn't chosen, a brand, a machine, a legacy operated by others with little say left in the matter. His thoughts were poetic, sometimes fragmented, almost like lyrics never set to music. "I feel like I'm living someone else's life," he wrote in one chilling line. What struck Ginger the most wasn't what he said, but how he said it. There was no anger, just quiet, almost haunting resignation. It read less like a letter and more like a farewell, a soft goodbye to a world that never really let him breathe. She says she read that letter over and over, especially in the years after, and every time something new would stand out, a word, a phrase, a pause, something she hadn't noticed before. And each time she asked herself the same question: why would a man at the top of the world write a letter like it was a goodbye? A final night full of signs, the night before everything changed. Ginger remembers Elvis being more animated than usual. There was a spark in his eyes, like a man with a secret he could barely keep. He talked about plans, not vague dreams, but actual detailed steps for something big, something personal. He even told her to pack a small bag just in case, and then smiled with that half-joking tone he used when he didn't want to explain too much. "We might be taking a trip no one would believe," he said. He spent that evening flipping through books on philosophy and spirituality. He scribbled notes in the margins, jotted down phrases on scrap paper and carefully stacked belongings near the door as if preparing to leave in a hurry but not in fear. He hummed to himself, rearranged a few things, then he stopped without warning. His mood changed. He became quiet, focused. He turned to Ginger and said he needed to be alone for a while. "I've got one last thing to take care of," he whispered, and with that he walked slowly down the hallway, disappearing into the shadows of Graceland, leaving Ginger standing there with a strange heavy silence pressing on her chest. What was that last thing, and why did it feel so much like a goodbye without saying goodbye? The moment that still haunts her. According to Ginger, she awoke hours later to find something wasn't right, not just with the room but with the entire energy of the house. Elvis wasn't where he usually would be. His routines, those small rituals he followed like clockwork, had been broken. The lights he typically left on were off. His favorite chair remained untouched. His things were neatly in place, but something about the air felt hollow still, like time itself had paused. She didn't panic, not at first. There were no signs of distress, no overturned furniture, no hastily written note, no sound, no trace, just an overwhelming sense of absence, like something had slipped away without making a sound. Ginger walked through the house in silence, half expecting him to call her name from another room. But the silence persisted. And what struck her most was that no one else around her seemed truly alarmed. No one asked questions. No one seemed eager to investigate. The more she tried to make sense of that moment, the less it made sense at all. Years later, she still recalls that eerie stillness, not as grief but as mystery, as if something had been set in motion and she was the only one who noticed. Could it be that what she witnessed wasn't the end, but the beginning of something hidden? The silence that followed. In the days that followed, everything changed for Ginger Alden. She wasn't just grieving, she was being quietly erased. The Presley family, once warm and welcoming, grew distant. Conversations were brief. Eye contact was avoided. No one asked her what she had seen, what she had heard, or how she was coping. It was as if the events of those final hours had become too sensitive, too complicated, and she had become inconvenient. When the media reached out, she was told to stay silent. And when she did speak, gently, respectfully, her words were chopped, misquoted, or ignored entirely. She became a target. A scapegoat. The young woman the world decided to blame without ever hearing her story. So Ginger did what she felt was the only option left. She disappeared from the narrative. Publicly, she said little. Privately, she held on to the pieces that mattered: Elvis's letter, his final words, the strange instructions he whispered to her that night. All of it burned into her memory. She never tried to profit from what she knew. She didn't write explosive memoirs or chase headlines. She just waited, and carried a truth that grew heavier with every passing year. And now, after decades of silence, she's ready to say it out loud for the very first time. Her confession changes everything. In a private off-camera interview, shared only with those she trusted, Ginger Alden finally let go of a truth she had carried for more than 4 decades. There was no dramatic outburst. No shocking twist in tone. What she shared came out slowly, deliberately, like someone finally releasing a breath they'd been holding for years. And yet, her words hit with a quiet force. According to Ginger, Elvis wasn't spending his final days focused on a grand return to the stage. He wasn't mapping out tour dates or rehearsing performances. He was, in her words, planning something completely different, a life beyond the stage, beyond the name. A clean break from the relentless expectations that had followed him since he was a teenager. He spoke of vanishing, not in fear, but in power. Of leaving the noise behind and starting again, somewhere distant, detached, and free from the legacy that had become more burden than blessing. Ginger described him not as defeated, but as clear-eyed, calm, intentional. He didn't want to be remembered as a man in decline, but as a myth left untouched. She made it clear Elvis had both the resources and the resolve. He'd thought it through. He'd made quiet preparations. He'd even dropped subtle hints about how it might all unfold, though never in enough detail to truly piece together. Ginger never used the word faked, she didn't need to. The certainty in her voice, the stillness in her expression, it said everything. Could it really be true? Had Elvis Presley orchestrated the most mysterious exit in music history? A legacy rewritten? Ginger Alden never chased fame. She didn't sell sensational stories. She didn't write salacious books or go on a press tour. For decades, she held her silence, not because she was afraid, but because she believed some things were too sacred to share. But now, as the years have passed and memories have sharpened, she says the weight of what she knows has become too heavy to carry alone. Her confession doesn't come with drama. It doesn't come with accusations. It comes with a quiet kind of heartbreak, the kind that comes from loving someone who may have chosen to disappear rather than be destroyed by fame. She still won't say certain things out loud. But her words, her tone, and her timing have opened a door that's never been opened before. What if Elvis Presley didn't meet a tragic end inside Graceland? What if he walked away from it all with only one person knowing the truth? What do you believe? Let us know in the comments. And if you're ready for more stories the world was never meant to hear, make sure to subscribe, because sometimes, the truth doesn't die. It just waits.